The Great Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Admiral Kethra stepped forward. Her blue skin was pale with worry, and her 3 eyes showed the fear that gripped every free world in the galaxy. Behind her, holographic displays showed, red markers spreading across star maps like a disease. The Vextai Empire was winning. "Council members," she began, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Our scouts report that the Vextai have taken the Meridian system. They now control 70% of known space." Gasps filled the air. The reptilian Saurak delegate hissed in dismay. The floating jellyfish-like ethereals pulsed with distress. Even the proud Titanians, with their massive stone bodies, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "How long do we have?" asked Chancellor Vexom, the eldest member of the council. His ancient voice carried the weight of seeing 3 previous galactic wars. "Our best estimates give us 6 months before they reach the core worlds," Admiral Kethra replied. "Maybe less." The council erupted in panicked discussions. Some delegates called for surrender. Others demanded impossible last stands. But Admiral Kethra raised her hand for silence. "There might be another way," she said quietly. The chamber fell silent again. Every being present leaned forward, desperate for any hope. "I have been studying the old databases," Admiral Kethra continued. "Records from before the Great Silence, when humans still lived in this galaxy. There are mentions of a ship, a warship called the Indomitable." General Thektar of the warrior caste laughed loudly. His scarred face showed nothing but mockery. "Humans. Those soft little creatures died out 400 years ago. They could barely fly between planets without killing themselves." The records. "Speak of impossible victories," Admiral Kethra insisted. "Battles where this ship appeared and turned certain defeat into glorious victory. Entire fleets destroyed by a single vessel." "Fairy tales," scoffed Commander Nixall of the Trade Federation. "Humans were weak. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships fell apart in space. How could such beings create a superweapon?" Other delegates nodded in agreement. Everyone knew the stories about humans. They lived short lives on small worlds. Their technology was centuries behind the great civilizations. When the plague came and wiped them out, most species barely noticed they were gone. "Besides," added General Thektar, "even if this ship existed, it would be space dust by now. 4 centuries is a long time." Admiral Kethra looked around the room at the dismissive faces. "The records are very specific. The ship's last known position was in the Sol system, the human home system. A dead system orbiting a dying star," Commander Nixall said with a wave of his tentacle. "Nothing there but frozen rocks and old metal." "What if you are wrong?" Admiral Kethra asked. "What if there is something there? Some remnant of human military power? We are facing extinction. Should we not examine every possibility?" Chancellor. Vexom considered this carefully. His old mind had seen many desperate hours. The cost of sending a scout mission to the Sol system would be enormous. We need every ship for the defense of our core worlds. "Then we send no one," Admiral Kethra said firmly. "But I will go myself. Take my fastest ship and 1 small crew. If there is nothing there, I will return quickly. If there is something, you will die alone in empty space," General Thektar said bluntly. "The Vextai, patrol those outer regions now. You would never make it back. Then I will die trying to save us all," Admiral Kethra replied. The council debated for hours. Some called her plan foolish. Others said it was suicide. But in the end, desperation won. They could not spare ships or troops, but they could spare 1 admiral and her crew. As the meeting ended and delegates filed out, Chancellor Vexom approached Admiral Kethra privately. "You truly believe this human ship exists?" he asked quietly. "I have studied every database we have," she replied. The references are consistent across multiple species records. Something called the Indomitable fought impossible battles and won them all. If it was just human propaganda, why would other species record it too? And you believe it still functions after 4 centuries? Admiral Kethra was quiet for a long moment. I believe we have no choice but to hope it does. Far away, in the cold darkness of the Sol system, something stirred. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden among countless chunks of dead rock and metal, automated sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through space. The sensors had been waiting for exactly this kind of signal for 400 years. Ancient. Computers came online, their quantum cores still perfect after centuries of sleep. They analyzed the approaching signatures and compared them to stored enemy profiles. The match was 99% certain. The Vextai Empire was expanding toward human space. The computers sent activation signals throughout a vast structure hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Miles of corridors began to glow with soft blue light. Massive engines that had been silent for centuries started their warming cycles. Weapon systems ran diagnostic checks and found themselves ready for battle. In the deepest part of the hidden ship, a special chamber received the activation signal. Inside this chamber lay a single human female in a crystalline pod filled with life-sustaining fluid. Machines monitored every function of her body, keeping her in perfect suspended animation. The computers calculated the threat level of the approaching enemy force. The analysis showed a fleet of unprecedented size and power. This was not a scouting mission or a small raid. This was a full invasion force capable of sterilizing entire star systems. More systems came online. The ship's artificial intelligence began accessing 4 centuries of stored data about galactic politics, military movements, and technological development. It noted with interest that organic species still fought with primitive energy weapons and chemical rockets. The humans had been right to prepare for this day. Deep in the command section, holographic displays activated and showed the current state of the galaxy. The AI observed the red markers indicating Vextai territory and calculated their expansion rate. At current speed, they would reach the outer edge of human space in approximately 6 months. That would be more than enough time for proper preparation. The ship's AI accessed the files containing the digital consciousness patterns of Earth's greatest military minds. Thousands of humanity's finest strategists, engineers, and soldiers existed now as pure information, ready to contribute their knowledge when needed. But for now, only one consciousness needed to be awakened. The life support systems in the crystalline pod began their revival sequence. Chemicals flowed through the tube networks, gradually bringing the sleeping human back to full biological function. Her heart began beating stronger. Her brain showed increased electrical activity. Captain Sarah Chen, last commander of the UES Indomitable, last hope of humanity, began to wake up after 400 years of dreamless sleep. The ship's AI waited patiently for her to fully revive. There was much to explain and little time to waste. The galaxy had forgotten about humanity, dismissed them as myths and fairy tales. But the battlefield was about to remember why humans had once been feared, across the stars. The Indomitable was no longer just a legend. It was about to become reality again. The Terran confluence blazed with the light of dying ships. 3 star systems met at this point in space, creating a natural highway that any conquering force would need to control. War Prime Zekth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the battle with satisfaction. His Vextai fleet stretched across space like a metal storm cloud. 5,000 warships of every size and class, their black hulls bristling with weapons. They had swept across the galaxy for decades, turning entire civilizations into ash and memory. Today would be no different. "Status report," Zeketh commanded, his voice a low growl that made lesser beings tremble. "The enemy alliance is breaking apart," reported his tactical officer. "Their coordination is failing. We estimate total victory in 4 hours." Zeketh nodded with approval. The so-called Free Worlds Alliance was exactly what he expected. A desperate collection of different species who could barely work together. Their ships were scattered across the battlefield, each group fighting its own private war instead of functioning as a unified force. The Zephyrian cruisers tried to maintain formation, but they were too few. The Saurak fighters swooped and dived like angry insects, but their weapons barely scratched Vextai armor. The massive Tachianian dreadnoughts moved too slowly to avoid concentrated fire. Most pathetic were the ethereal vessels, floating like soap bubbles and popping just as easily when hit. "Sir," called the communications officer, "Admiral Kethra of the Zephyrian fleet is requesting immediate assistance. Her flagship is surrounded." "Let her die," Zekth replied coldly. She was foolish to resist the inevitable. Through the main viewer, he watched another enemy ship explode in brilliant fire. The Free Worlds Alliance had fought bravely. He would give them that much. But bravery meant nothing against superior numbers and better technology. "War Prime," the sensor officer called out, his voice uncertain. "I am detecting an unusual energy signature." "What kind of signature?" "Unknown, sir. It is coming from the debris field near the third planet. Very large, but the configuration does not match anything in our databases." Zekth frowned. His databases contained information about every known ship type in the galaxy. "Show me." The main screen shifted to show a cloud of twisted metal and broken rock floating in space. For a moment, Zeketh saw nothing unusual. Then, something moved, among the debris. Something large. "Magnify that section," he ordered. The image grew larger and clearer. A ship was emerging from the debris field, but it looked like nothing Zeketh had ever seen. The hull was a strange silver color that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. The design was completely alien, with flowing curves instead of sharp angles. Strange protrusions jutted from its surface, their purpose unclear. "Size estimate?" Zeketh asked. "Approximately 4 kilometers long, sir. But the density readings are impossible. It should not be able to maintain structural integrity at that mass." Before Zeketh could respond, his communication system activated. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in an accent he had never heard before. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Indomitable. All hostile vessels stand down immediately and withdraw from this system." The bridge fell silent. Zeketh stared at the screen, processing what he had just heard. Earth? Humans? But humans had been extinct for centuries. Everyone knew that. "This is War Prime Zeketh of the Vextai Empire," he broadcast back. "You will identify yourself properly. There are no human ships in this galaxy." "I am identifying myself properly," the voice replied calmly. "This is your only warning. Withdraw your forces or face the consequences." Zeketh laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You dare threaten the Vextai Empire with a single ship? Whatever you are, prepare to join your pathetic allies in death." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target that vessel. Full bombardment. I want it reduced to atoms." Yes, War Prime. Every ship in the nearby Vextai formation turned their weapons toward the strange vessel. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space, enough firepower to crack a moon. The beams struck the silver ship and simply disappeared, absorbed into its hull without causing any visible damage. "Impossible," whispered the tactical officer. On the screen, the silver ship began to move. It did not accelerate gradually like normal vessels. Instead, it simply started moving at incredible speed, as if the laws of physics meant nothing to it. It flowed through space like water, changing direction instantly without slowing down. "Track that ship," Zeketh shouted. "Bring all weapons. To bear!" But tracking the vessel was impossible. It moved in ways that hurt to watch, shifting position faster than sensors could follow. The Vextai gunners fired at where it had been, but it was never there when the shots arrived. Then it fired back. The silver ship had no visible weapon ports, but energy beams of impossible brightness erupted from its hull. These were not the red or blue beams that every civilized species used. These beams were pure white, so intense that looking at them directly would blind organic eyes. The first beam struck a Vex-TIE destroyer, and the ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, just gone. Where a 1,000-meter warship had been, only empty space remained. What was that weapon? Zeketh demanded. Unknown energy type, the science officer reported, his voice shaking. It appears to have completely disintegrated the target at the molecular level. The silver ship fired again, and again. Each shot erased another Vex-TIE vessel from existence. In less than 30 seconds, an entire battle group of 50 ships had been reduced to nothing. All vessels, concentrate fire on that ship, Zeketh broadcast to his entire fleet. Everything we have! The sky lit up with energy beams as 5,000 Vex-TIE ships opened fire simultaneously. The barrage was so intense that space itself seemed to catch fire. Surely nothing could survive such overwhelming firepower. When the light faded, the silver ship hung unchanged in space. Its hull showed no damage at all. If anything, it seemed to glow brighter than before, as if it had absorbed all that energy and made itself stronger. "This is Captain Chen," the human voice said again. "You have chosen poorly." The silver ship began to move through the Vex-TIE formation like a shark through a school of fish. Its white beams fired constantly, each shot erasing another warship from existence. It moved too fast to hit, too strong to damage, and too deadly to ignore. Across the battlefield, the surviving ships of the Free Worlds Alliance watched in amazement. Admiral Kethra stared at her tactical display as red markers representing Vex-TIE ships disappeared one by one. "What is that thing?" asked her communications officer. "I think," Admiral Kethra said slowly, "it is exactly what I hoped to find." The silver ship had reached the center of the Vex-TIE formation. It stopped moving and hung motionless in space, surrounded by thousands of enemy vessels. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then every weapon on the ship fired at once. White beams erupted in all directions, creating a sphere of deadly energy that expanded outward like a miniature star. Every Vex-TIE ship within 50 kilometers simply vanished. The sphere continued expanding, erasing everything it touched. When it finally faded, nearly a quarter of the Vex-TIE fleet was gone. War Prime Zeketh stared at his tactical display in shock. In less than 5 minutes, this single unknown vessel had destroyed over 1,000 of his ships. His officers looked at him with fear in their eyes, waiting for orders. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "the human ship is broadcasting again." Zeketh said nothing but gestured for the message to be played. "This is your final warning," Captain Chen's voice said. "Withdraw from this system immediately. You have 10 minutes to begin your retreat. Any ship that remains after that time will be destroyed." The War Prime looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced anything like this. The legends spoke of ancient human military technology, but he had always dismissed such stories as fantasy. Now he began to wonder what other myths might be real. "Give the order," he said quietly. "All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance." His officers stared at him in shock. "The mighty Vex-TIE Empire retreating from a single ship?" "Sir?" the tactical officer asked. "You heard me," Zeketh growled. "We withdraw. For now." As the Vex-TIE fleet began its retreat, the silver ship remained, motionless in space, waiting, watching, ready to prove that some legends were more dangerous than any reality. Captain Sarah Chen opened her eyes for the first time in 400 years. The revival chamber was filled with soft blue light, and warm fluid surrounded her body. For a moment, she could not remember where she was or why everything felt wrong. Then, The memories came flooding back. The plague, the dying worlds, the desperate final plan. Her crew volunteering to sleep forever while their ship waited for the right moment to wake them. "Good morning, Captain," said a familiar voice. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke with the same calm tone it had used during their last battle centuries ago. "I apologize for the long delay in revival, but the situation has finally required your direct command." Sarah tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. The revival chamber began draining the fluid around her, and robotic arms helped her sit up. She felt weak, but alive. "Status report," she managed to whisper. "The Vextai Empire has expanded across approximately 70% of known galactic space," the AI reported. "Their main invasion fleet is currently threatening the Terran confluence. I have already engaged a forward battle group and forced them to withdraw. How long was I asleep? 407 years, 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to process this information. Everyone she had ever known was dead. Every world she had ever visited was either destroyed or changed beyond recognition. She was completely alone in an alien galaxy. "The crew?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Commander Rodriguez, Lieutenant Park, and 17 other. Crew members remain in stasis. Dr. Martinez volunteered to remain conscious to monitor ship systems. She died naturally after 93 years of service. Her final logs expressed confidence that you would complete the mission." Sarah nodded slowly. Dr. Martinez had been her best friend, her closest advisor. The thought that she had died alone while Sarah slept was almost too painful to bear. "Show me the current situation," she said. Holographic displays materialized around her, showing star maps covered in red markers. The Vextai Empire controlled huge sections of space, their territory growing larger every day. Sarah studied the tactical information and felt a familiar anger building in her chest. "They are still expanding," she observed. "Yes, Captain. Their current target appears to be the complete conquest of all organic species. Based on historical patterns, they will begin systematic genocide once resistance ends." Sarah stood up carefully, her legs still shaky from the long sleep. The revival chamber opened, and she stepped out onto the bridge of her ship. Everything looked exactly as she had left it centuries ago, but she knew that appearances could be deceiving. "Ship status?" she asked. "All systems operating at full capacity," the AI replied. "The quantum reactors have maintained peak efficiency throughout our dormant period. Weapon systems have been continuously upgraded using stored raw materials. We are significantly more powerful now than when we entered stasis." Sarah walked to the main viewer and looked out at the stars. They seemed different somehow, though she could not say exactly how. Maybe it was just the knowledge that everything had changed. "How many Vextai ships did you destroy in the first engagement?" 1,234 vessels eliminated. No damage sustained to our systems." Despite everything, Sarah smiled. The Indomitable had always been humanity's greatest achievement, but apparently it had continued improving itself during her long sleep. "The alien alliance that was fighting them. Do they know who we are?" "Admiral Kethra of the Zephyrian Fleet recognizes our designation. She appears to have researched human military records extensively. The other Alliance members seem confused, but grateful for our intervention." Sarah considered this carefully. 4 centuries ago, humanity had been friendly with many alien species. They had shared technology, traded goods, and even fought together against common enemies. But humans had also been feared for their military capabilities and their tendency to never surrender, even when facing impossible odds. "Open a channel." "To Admiral Kethra," Sarah commanded. The main screen shifted to show a blue-skinned alien female with 3 eyes. She looked exhausted but hopeful. "Captain Chen," Admiral Kethra said, "I cannot express how grateful we are for your intervention. I had hoped to find you, but I never imagined you would arrive so perfectly timed." "Admiral?" Sarah replied formally. "I understand you are coordinating the defense against the Vextai expansion." "What defense is left?" Admiral Kethra said bitterly. "They have destroyed most of our fleets. The surviving ships are scattered and demoralized. Without your ship, we would have been annihilated today." Sarah studied the tactical displays showing the positions of both fleets. The Vextai had withdrawn to a safe distance, but they were clearly regrouping for another attack. The Allied forces were badly outnumbered and outgunned. "I need complete tactical information about Vextai capabilities," Sarah said. "Everything. You have learned about their ships, weapons, and strategies." "Of course, Captain. Transmitting all available data now." As the information flowed into the Indomitable's computers, Sarah began to understand the enemy they faced. The Vextai were efficient killers who had perfected the art of conquest. Their ships were powerful and well-designed. Their tactics were proven and effective. Most importantly, they had numbers that seemed unlimited. "Captain," the AI said privately, "analysis of this data suggests that the Vextai military force exceeds our capacity for conventional engagement. Even with our advanced systems, we cannot destroy their entire fleet through direct combat." Sarah nodded. She had reached the same conclusion. The Indomitable was incredibly powerful, but it was still just one ship. The Vextai had millions of vessels spread across their empire. "Then we do not fight conventionally," she said quietly. "We fight like humans." Over the next several hours, Sarah studied every piece of intelligence about the Vextai Empire. She learned about their industrial worlds, their supply lines, their command structure, and their psychology. Most importantly, she learned about their greatest weakness. The Vextai were a hive mind species. Every individual was connected to a central intelligence that controlled their thoughts and actions. This made them incredibly coordinated in battle, but it also made them vulnerable to the right kind of attack. "Admiral Kethra," Sarah said, opening another communication channel, "I am going to need your ships to perform a specific mission." "Whatever you need, Captain. Our vessels are at your disposal. I want you to gather every surviving ship and attack the main Vextai fleet." Admiral Kethra stared at her in shock. "Captain, that would be suicide. We cannot possibly win a direct engagement." "You are not supposed to win," Sarah explained calmly. "You are supposed to lose in a very specific way. I need the Vextai to believe they are achieving total victory. This will require them to commit their entire local fleet to the battle." "And what will you be doing during this suicide mission?" Sarah smiled, and for the first time in centuries, she felt like herself again. "I am going to cut off the head of the snake." The plan was simple but dangerous. While the Allied fleets engaged the main Vextai force in a desperate last stand, the Indomitable would use its advanced stealth systems to infiltrate deep into Vextai space. Their target was the central command ship that controlled the entire regional fleet. "Captain," Admiral Kethra said hesitantly, "even if you succeed in destroying their command vessel, you will be trapped behind enemy lines with no support." "Admiral," Sarah replied, "humanity spent its final years preparing for exactly this kind of war. We knew we would be outnumbered. We knew we would be outgunned. So we built ships that could fight alone against impossible odds." She paused, looking out at the stars that no longer felt alien to her. "The Vextai are about to learn why the galaxy used to fear human warships." The Indomitable began moving toward the edge of the system, its hull shimmering as advanced stealth systems activated. On her bridge, surrounded by the ghosts of her lost species, Captain Sarah Chen prepared to prove that some legends were too dangerous to remain myths. The Indomitable moved through space like a ghost, its advanced stealth systems making it invisible to every sensor the Vextai possessed. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching as her ship penetrated deeper into enemy territory. Behind them, the battle at Terran Confluence raged on exactly as planned. "Status of the diversionary attack?" she asked. Admiral Kethra's forces are performing admirably, the AI reported. They are losing the battle in precisely the manner required to maintain Vextai attention. War Prime Zeketh has committed his entire fleet to the engagement. Sarah nodded, grimly. Thousands of brave beings were dying to give her this chance. She could not waste their sacrifice. Target analysis complete, Captain, the AI continued. The Vextai command vessel is a massive structure measuring 50 kilometers in length. It contains approximately 10 million Vextai individuals, including their regional hive queen. Defenses? Extensive. Energy shields rated at impossibly high levels, surrounded by a protective fleet of over 5,000 ships. Direct assault would be ineffective. Sarah smiled coldly. Good thing we are not planning a direct assault. For the past several hours, she had been reviewing humanity's most classified military technologies. The systems that had been deemed too dangerous to use except in the most desperate circumstances. Systems that her own species had feared to activate. AI, prepare the consciousness transfer protocol. Captain, I must remind you that this procedure has never been tested on a living subject. The risks are extreme. Everything we are doing carries extreme risk, Sarah replied. Execute the protocol. Deep in the ship's core, ancient machinery came to life. The Indomitable was not just a warship, it was a repository of human knowledge, containing the digitized consciousness of thousands of Earth's greatest minds, scientists, strategists, engineers, and soldiers who had volunteered to upload themselves rather than let their knowledge die with their bodies. Captain, a new voice said, materializing as a hologram on the bridge. The image showed an elderly, human male wearing a military uniform. Admiral Harrison reporting for duty. Sarah saluted respectfully. Admiral Harrison had been humanity's greatest military strategist, the architect of their final desperate plans. Admiral, I need tactical analysis for a stealth infiltration mission. Already reviewing the data, Captain, another voice said. This hologram showed a woman in a scientist's coat. Dr. Kim here. The Vextai command structure is more vulnerable than they realize. More holograms appeared. Hundreds of humanity's best and brightest, preserved as digital consciousness, ready to contribute their knowledge to this final battle. The key, said Admiral Harrison, is not to destroy the command ship. It is to reprogram it. Explain, Sarah said. The Vextai hive mind depends on constant communication with their queen, Dr. Kim added, but communication works both ways. If we can inject a virus into their command network, we can turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. Sarah studied the tactical displays. How do we get close enough to plant this virus? We do not get close, Admiral Harrison said with a grim smile. We get inside. The plan they developed was insane, even by human standards. The Indomitable would use its most advanced technology to phase partially out of normal space, allowing it to pass through solid matter. This would let them materialize directly inside the Vextai command vessel's core systems. The energy requirements are enormous, warned the chief engineer's consciousness. We would have only minutes before the ship's power systems overload. Minutes are all we need, Sarah replied. As the Indomitable approached the Vextai command fleet, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. She had been trained for this her entire life. Humanity had spent its final decades preparing for exactly this moment. Beginning phase transition, the AI announced. The ship around Sarah began to feel insubstantial, as if she were standing inside a dream. Through the transparent hull, she could see the massive Vextai command vessel growing larger. Its dark metal surface was covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays, making it look like a mechanical monster. Transition complete. We are now intangible to normal matter. The Indomitable passed through the command vessel's outer hull as if it were made of air. Sarah watched alien corridors and machinery pass by like ghostly images. Thousands of Vextai, Soldiers moved through the ship, completely unaware that an enemy vessel was flying through their midst. "Target located," the AI reported. "Central Command Nexus directly ahead." The heart of the Vextai ship was a vast chamber filled with organic computer systems. Pulsing biomechanical networks stretched across the walls like giant nervous systems. At the center of it all sat the Hive Queen, a massive creature connected to the ship's systems by thousands of neural cables. "This is it," Sarah said quietly. "Prepare the virus." "Captain," Dr. Kim's hologram said urgently, "I have discovered something disturbing in their computer systems. The Vextai are not just conquering the galaxy. They are preparing it for someone else." "What do you mean?" "Their invasion pattern is not random. They are systematically destroying specific worlds and preserving others. This appears to be terraforming on a galactic scale." Admiral Harrison studied the data flows around them. "They are servants, not masters. Someone is directing this conquest from outside our galaxy." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "Who?" "Unknown," Dr. Kim replied. "But based on the scale of this operation, we are dealing with a civilization far more advanced than anything we have encountered." For a moment, Sarah hesitated. If the Vextai were just tools of some greater enemy, would destroying them accomplish anything meaningful? Then she remembered the dying worlds, the burning ships, the billions of innocent beings already killed. Whatever was behind the Vextai invasion, it had to be stopped here and now. "Deploy the virus," she commanded. "Captain," Admiral Harrison said gravely, "there is something else you need to know. The virus will work, but the process will create a quantum resonance cascade. Every ship connected to this command network will be affected simultaneously. That includes millions of vessels across their entire empire," Dr. Kim added, "and millions of Vextai crew members who are not responsible for their leaders' actions." Sarah understood the implication. The virus would not just disable the Vextai fleet. It would kill every member of their species connected to the hive mind. Genocide on an unimaginable scale. "Is there any other way?" she asked quietly. The assembled consciousnesses of humanity's greatest minds worked frantically, analyzing every possible alternative. But after several tense minutes, Admiral Harrison shook his head. "The hive mind cannot be partially disabled. It is all or nothing." Sarah closed her eyes. This was the choice humanity had prepared her to make, the choice that had driven her species. To create weapons too terrible to contemplate, save the galaxy by becoming the very monster they fought against. "Captain," said Dr. Martinez's voice. Sarah looked around in shock. Her old friend's consciousness had been activated from the ship's memory banks. "Maria?" Sarah whispered. "Hello, Sarah. I wanted to be here for this moment." "I watched over you for 93 years, Dr. Martinez continued gently. "I studied every species in this galaxy. I learned their histories, their cultures, their dreams. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that they deserve a chance to live." Sarah looked around at the holograms of her people, humanity's greatest minds, all waiting for her decision. "The Vextai made their choice when they chose conquest over coexistence," Admiral Harrison said firmly. "Do not let their evils survive because of our compassion." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at the Hive Queen, the creature that had ordered the deaths of billions. "Deploy the virus," she commanded. The Indomitable's computers launched their attack on the Vextai network. The virus spread like lightning through their communication systems, rewriting basic command protocols and turning the hive mind against itself. "Virus deployment successful," the AI reported. "Beginning emergency departure." As the Indomitable phased back into normal space and fled the dying command vessel, Sarah watched the Vextai Empire collapse in real time. Across the galaxy, their ships went silent as their crews turned on each other in programmed madness. She had saved the galaxy, but the cost of victory was a weight she would carry forever. "Captain," Dr. Martinez said softly, "humanity chose you. to make the hard choices. We are proud of you." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Outside the ship, the stars seemed different now, safer, perhaps, but somehow sadder as well. The legend of the human warship was complete. But legends always came with a price. The silence that followed was deafening. Across the galaxy, Vextai ships drifted powerlessly through space. Their crews were gone, victims of the virus that had turned their hive mind into a weapon against itself. Entire fleets that had terrorized. Civilizations for decades now floated like mechanical graveyards among the stars. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical displays show the end of an empire. Red markers that had represented enemy ships faded to gray one by one until the galaxy was free of the Vextai threat. "Casualty estimates?" she asked quietly. "Approximately 4 billion Vextai individuals eliminated," the AI replied. "Complete species extinction achieved in 17 minutes. Sarah closed her eyes. 4 billion lives, even if they were her. Enemies, even if they had killed countless innocent beings, the weight of such massive destruction was almost unbearable. "Captain," Admiral Kethra's voice came through the communication system, "we are detecting massive system failures throughout the Vextai fleet." "What happened?" "The war is over, Admiral," Sarah replied simply. "The Vextai Empire no longer exists." Through the main viewer, Sarah could see the Allied ships approaching carefully. They had survived the final battle thanks to her diversion, but they were clearly confused by the sudden silence of their enemies. "How is that possible?" Admiral Kethra asked. "There were millions of their ships." "There were," Sarah confirmed. "Now there are none." Over the next several hours, Sarah met with the surviving leaders of the Free Worlds Alliance. They gathered in the council chamber of Admiral Kethra's flagship, their faces showing a mixture of joy, relief, and deep concern. "Captain Chen," said General Thektar, the same being who had mocked the idea of human military power just days before. "We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You have saved our entire civilization." "All of our civilizations," added Chancellor Vexom, who had joined the meeting via hologram. "But I must ask, what exactly did you do to accomplish this victory?" Sarah looked around the table at these alien faces. Some she recognized from old diplomatic files. Others were completely new to her. All of them deserved the truth. "I committed genocide," she said simply. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "The Vextai operated as a hive mind," Sarah continued. "All of their individuals were connected to a central intelligence network. I infected that network with a virus designed to turn their own thoughts against them." "You destroyed their entire species," Admiral Kethra said, not as an accusation, but as a statement of fact. "Yes," Sarah replied. "Every last one of them." "They were killers," General Thektar said firmly. "They chose their path. You simply ended it." "Did I?" Sarah asked. "Or did I become exactly what they were? A destroyer of entire peoples?" Dr. Martinez's hologram materialized beside Sarah's chair. The other delegates looked surprised to see a second human consciousness appear. "May I address this concern, Captain?" Dr. Martinez asked. Sarah nodded. "Honorable delegates," Dr. Martinez said, "before making this decision, Captain Chen and our collective consciousness analyzed every possible alternative. We found that the Vexatai hive mind structure made partial solutions impossible. It was total war or total surrender. There was no middle ground," Admiral Harrison's hologram added, appearing on Sarah's other side. "The Vextai would have continued their expansion until every free world was destroyed. More human consciousnesses began materializing around the chamber. Scientists, strategists, philosophers, and soldiers, the greatest minds humanity had ever produced, all united in supporting Sarah's decision. "We do not ask you to forgive us," said Dr. Kim. "We ask you to remember that sometimes the only choice is between becoming a monster and allowing monsters to win. Chancellor Vexom studied the human holograms with fascination. These are digital recreations of your people's consciousness? Not recreations, Sarah corrected. These are my people. They volunteered to upload their minds to preserve human knowledge and wisdom. The Indomitable is not just a warship. It is the entire surviving culture of humanity. Remarkable, breathed Admiral Kethra. You carry the souls of your entire species. Which brings us to an important matter, Sarah said, standing up from her chair. The Indomitable was not designed for a single battle. It was designed for a long war. But that war is now over. She walked to the chamber's main viewer, which showed the stars beyond. Humanity is extinct. I am the last living member of my species. When I die, the human chapter of galactic history will be closed forever. That does not have to be true, Admiral Kethra said urgently. We have genetic reconstruction technology. We could rebuild your species from stored samples. Sarah shook her head. Humanity chose extinction. We poured everything we were, everything we could ever be, into weapons like the Indomitable. We knew there would be no coming back from that choice. Then what will you do now? Asked General Thektar. Sarah turned back to face the assembled delegates. I will complete humanity's final mission. The Vextai were servants, not masters. They were preparing our galaxy for invasion by something else, something from outside our local space. The delegates exchanged worried glances. We found evidence. In their computer systems, Dr. Kim explained, a vast intelligence directing the conquest from afar. The Vextai were just tools. Then we are still in danger? Chancellor Vexom asked. Yes, Sarah said simply, but you are not defenseless. Humanity spent 4 centuries developing weapons and technologies specifically for this kind of war. Before I join my people in whatever comes after, I will share that knowledge with you. Over the following weeks, Sarah worked with the Alliance's best scientists and engineers. The Indomitable's computers downloaded centuries of human, technological advancement into their databases. Weapons systems, defensive technologies, industrial processes, and scientific theories that would have taken organic species millennia to develop on their own. This is incredible, Admiral Kethra said, as she reviewed the technical specifications. Some of these concepts are so advanced I can barely understand them. Humanity had the luxury of desperation, Sarah replied. When your entire species faces extinction, you become very creative very quickly. But as the knowledge transfer continued, Sarah felt herself growing weaker. The connection between her consciousness and the ship's systems was beginning to fade. Captain, the AI said privately, your biological functions are declining rapidly. The stress of the consciousness transfer is accelerating your cellular breakdown. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The human body was not designed to interface directly with the kind of technology the Indomitable used. How long do I have? At current degradation rates, approximately 72 hours. Sarah looked around the bridge one last time. She had spent more time here than anywhere else in her life. It felt like home. Gather all the consciousness, she commanded. I want to speak with everyone. The bridge filled with holographic figures as every digitized human mind was activated simultaneously. Thousands of her people, representing the greatest achievements of human civilization. My friends, Sarah said, her voice growing weaker. Our mission is complete. The galaxy is safe from the Vextai threat, and we have given the surviving species the tools they need to face whatever comes next. Captain, Admiral Harrison said, you have served with honor and distinction. Humanity could not have asked for a better final commander. The question now, said Dr. Martinez, is what happens to us. Our consciousness can continue indefinitely within the ship's systems. We could remain active for millions of years. Sarah considered this carefully. That would not be living. That would be haunting. Humanity chose to end its biological existence. To save the galaxy, we should not linger as ghosts. What do you propose? Asked Dr. Kim. Sarah smiled, feeling a peace she had not experienced in centuries. I propose we go home. She walked to the ship's control console and began entering commands. Computer, set course for the Sol system, maximum speed. Course laid in, Captain. The Indomitable turned toward the distant star that had once warmed, Earth. As it accelerated through space, Sarah made one final transmission to the Allied fleet. Admiral Kethra, this is Captain Chen. The Indomitable is returning to human space. We leave the galaxy in your capable hands. Captain, wait, Admiral Kethra replied urgently. You do not have to face the end alone. You could stay with us. We would be honored to have you among our people. Sarah looked at the thousands of human consciousness surrounding her on the bridge, her people, her family, waiting patiently for her decision. Thank you, Admiral, but humanity began its journey among the stars of Sol. It is fitting that we end it there as well. The Indomitable reached the Sol system 3 days later. Sarah was barely conscious now, kept alive only by the ship's medical systems. Through the main viewer, she could see the burned remains of Earth, the planet that had given birth to her species. Final orders, Captain? The AI asked gently. Sarah smiled one last time. Take us into the sun, she whispered. Let humanity's light join with the light that gave us life. As the Indomitable descended toward the solar corona, its hull began to glow with intense heat. But instead of being destroyed, the ship's advanced systems converted that energy into something else. Something beautiful.